Big news, email marketing is not dead. It's just so default that in 2026, people often forget how important it can be. Almost every account you've ever created starts by entering your email, and that is why it is still super important. So today we're going to take a look at what I believe to be some of the core tenets of email marketing. We'll cover the context about why email is still super important and some of the methodology and technological things you need to keep in mind before you start your email marketing program. But why in 2026 does email still matter? Across your digital life, email is still where the important stuff lands. When you buy something, it's where they send the receipt. It's usually where your support ticket is going to be dealt with. If you forget your password, you're going to need to log in. And from a legal standpoint, companies are obligated to send you key information in writing to your address. So even if you're a mobile-first company, logging in with the phone number, getting an email address on file can be very helpful for some of these procedural and legal-related communications. Before we start talking about email as a channel and you start your email marketing journey, there's a few things that we should consider. First of all, email is a direct channel, but it's not owned by you or your organization. The inbox is owned by the customer, and you are communicating on email platforms that are outside of your control. So while we do have access to send the email, in the end, that message is living outside of the parameters which we can tightly control. Also, our ability to deliver these messages are built on a trust relationship we have with the email providers as well as the senders we're using to deliver our message. And since this is a trust-based medium, your reputation will dictate your results. If you're sending terrible messages that go to the spam folder, you're going to have a very difficult time overcoming that and getting actual results from this channel. Speaking of channels, you're currently watching mine, so if you could like this video and subscribe or maybe tell a friend, I'd appreciate it. So let's look at why email programs often fail. Having worked on hundreds of different projects, I've distilled it down to a few key observations. Number one, the program was started casually and never upgraded. An example of this would be an organization or brand that set up a MailChimp account or started collecting emails, but never really thought too much about how they're used or what data could be leveraged from having that list in the company. Another big mistake that we often see is that email is treated as a blast channel. Instead of segmenting users or considering what they might actually want in the messaging you're sending out, you just select all and blast everyone with whatever comes to mind, whether it be what the CEO said, what a project manager dictated, or something HR thought would be a little kooky and fun. You can do that, but you probably shouldn't. Another big challenge we often see is that the program is built on weak data. You gather the email, sometimes the first name, but there's no data policy enforcing what's collected and no plan for how you build out that customer profile over time. The last big mistake I've seen time and time again is not monitoring for performance. And like I say about every marketing channel, if you don't know your numbers, you're never going to improve. So let's talk about messaging and how it scales as you grow your customer list. There's two primary ways that email tools let you engage with customers. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, is just sending out a blast. It's a singular message that you're sending to a large segment of your list in a one-to-many fashion. Basically, no personalization or perhaps dropping in a first name, and no real segmentation to make sure the message could resonate with your potential recipient. Examples of this type of message might be a monthly newsletter, or if you're in a startup or a corporation, an investor relations update. It's the email equivalent to broadcast media. This type of message can be very impactful, but it should not be the whole backbone of your messaging plan. The second type of message that is common in almost every email tool is journeys or sequences where we are sending multiple messages to the same customer but using conditional logic to dictate what message they're going to receive. For example, you may send a message to someone, and if they don't open or click within a certain time period, you send a follow-up to see if you can push for the objective you're aiming for. These types of messages often perform better with advanced personalization, so using data from within your system, website, or environment to include messaging that shows you know where they're at in the customer journey and you're there to help them meet their goals. Examples of this messaging type are customer onboarding, where we're teaching them about features of a software product, or upsell sequences, where we're trying to encourage someone to change plans or buy additional products based on actions they've taken or products they've already purchased. To get the most out of your email marketing programs, a mixture of these two types of messages is usually the best way to do it. You should also consider how it plays within the broader ecosystem of how you're talking to potential customers. If you're just starting your email marketing journey or are reviving an existing program, there's some strategic questions that you can ask yourself, your client, or your team to help get a better sense of what you can do to be successful. The best time to ask these questions is as early as possible, because it does dictate the choices you're going to make when choosing a tool and coming up with your initial messaging. Question number 1 is, what type of content are we going to be sending? If it's a SaaS software, you're probably educating the users on how to use it. If it's an industry association, you're probably reaching out to members or fundraising. And if you're in B2B sales, you might be sending a white paper or attachments for people to understand your product better. This doesn't need to be a long and drawn out process. Just sit down with the key people in your organization and make a list of what you could foresee sending out in the next 6 to 12 months, so that you can make sure the tools you have are able to support it. Second question to ask is, how will the content be formatted? Are you looking to send out image-rich HTML emails? Are you looking to send plain text? And again, will there be attachments that need to be hosted and monitored for clicks, etc.? Will these assets require graphic design, or will you just use built-in editors to deliver these messages? The next question to ask is, who will be receiving these messages, and what do we need to know about them to be able to deliver that message effectively? For example, if I'm running a charity, I'll want to know whether the person being emailed has donated in the past and possibly how much they've donated, so that we can tailor the options available to them. If I'm running a software as a service platform, I'll want to know if they've taken the actions I've deemed important to making a good customer. Those items will need to be noted down and built into the system so that we can be smart about the way we're sending our messages. Another key question to ask is, how often are we looking to send these emails, and roughly how big is the list going to be? If you don't have an email sending platform already, the volume of messages sent often dictates the price. And if you already have one involved, you should look at your usage metrics and see if it actually suits the use cases you're looking to have in your new iteration. There is no shortage of email delivery options available, and what makes sense for your organization might not work for someone else. So mapping out some of these questions ahead of time will help you make an informed decision. Whether you're choosing a new email tool or reviving an existing email program, having the answers to some of these questions will make it much easier to decide if you have a suitable solution for the type of messaging you want to send. But how do you choose an email delivery platform? In my opinion, there's a few key things that you want to consider. First up, there's a lot of options out there, and they have various features and implementation costs. So by defining how we are going to use the tool and what messages we're going to send, we can make a better decision about what tool it might be. Keep in mind that nothing is free. The golden days of MailChimp and free-for-all platforms are behind us, and many of these systems are heavily gated in ways that make them very cumbersome once you start trying to actually use the product. So while free options can work in some cases, there's always a price. It may be advertising for the platform appended to the end of your messages. It could be the use of your data and selling it to other partners, or in some cases, it is an unreasonable cost once you get out of the free tier. Like all things in life, make sure to read the fine print and understand how this is going to grow with you over time. I'm of the opinion that it's easier to spend a little bit early so that you can scale gracefully as opposed to having to switch once you're starting to gain momentum. You're also going to want to consider what kind of templates or sending features are available on the platform and if those line up with the sending needs you've already discovered. Most modern platforms have tools in place for you to build and send emails, but make sure that they have the capabilities that you need for your organization, e-com store, or SaaS product. And depending on what type of organization you're running, you're going to want to understand what additional data capabilities the platform has. If you need advanced segmentation where a user has multiple properties attached to them, many platforms have limitations on that. So understanding how the user is going to be messaged and how that relates to their journey within your business is super important before choosing your tool. Another thing to be mindful of with email is it has a technical layer, and that is why you are just paying a platform to take care of it for you. In most cases, it's a bad idea to try and do this in-house unless you have a dedicated team with experience white labeling domains and sending bulk email. And if you're engaging in a sales process with email providers, there's bound to be some technical language that you need to be aware of. The biggest technical factor to be mindful of is managing the quality of your list and protecting your reputation as a business sending these messages. Some providers have tools specifically built in to help protect you and them from ruining your reputation and hurting your deliverability, but this maintenance is something that needs to be looked at regularly and will need to be the responsibility of someone on your team. You should also understand sending domains, which is where you're going to send the email from, shared domains, where maybe you're borrowing the domain from your email provider, versus owned domains, which are ones that you own and are responsible for maintaining the reputation of. These aren't necessarily things that you need to fully understand yourself as the owner of an email program, but it is something you should be aware of when you're involved in the sales process with an email platform. Since email is technical, there are certain records that will need to be configured on your domain name. So if you have a DevOps team or if you're a solo operator, you're going to need someone comfortable adding records at the domain level to get all of this set up. Again, most providers have detailed help, or if you're paying dedicated staff to help you get set up and going, but these record names are things that will pop up and you should at least be familiar with the acronyms existing. I'm not going to get into them here because this is just an intro. If you want to take some time and deep dive into the technical side of email deliverability, there is no shortage of content available for that on the internet. Just realize that it's a rabbit hole, and when people are saying that they charge for doing it, it is an actual amount of work and you probably don't want to do it yourself. The last thing to understand about your email marketing program is the monitoring and the analytics required to really understand what's happening and start seeing success. If you don't stay on top of some of these numbers, you're going to see your reputation decay over time. And once your reputation has decayed, it is very difficult to build it back up again. So you're better off to understand these metrics and how they relate to your business and your ability to send email. First up is your open rate versus deliverability. So deliverability is the opportunity to actually get a message into the inbox, and your open rate is what percentage of the people you sent to actually open the email. If you're constantly sending messages with a very low open rate, you're going to find yourself in the spam folder where it'll pretty much never get opened. Another key metric to monitor is your click rate and your open to click ratio. So what percentage of the people who opened your email clicked on it, and what percentage of the overall audience you addressed with your message actually clicked to take an action on your product or site. Do a quick Google or ask ChatGPT for what the benchmarks for your industry are. And if you are below that, you need to work on improving that number because, again, it does affect your reputation over time. The third metric to be monitoring is the size of your list versus your active base. If you have 10,000 emails, that would be the size of your list. But if 200 people are the 200 that actually open and engage with your content, then that would be your active base. And just for reference, a 2% active base would be terrible and something you definitely would want to fix immediately. The fourth metric to stay on top of is the unsubscribe rate. So the number of people that are unsubscribing or marking your email as spam and any reasons that they are giving as to why that's happening. If people are constantly marking your messages as spam, that's going to hurt your overall reputation and become a big problem for your email program as a whole. Reviewing the reasons given by people who are unsubscribing from your list can often give you insights as to how to improve your content so that they don't do that. As with all digital products, there's no shortage of additional metrics and ratios and graphs that you could track to make sure you're getting the most out of your email program. But at an introductory level, those are the big ones. So we've talked about tools, we've talked about messaging, we've talked about metrics. Now what? How can we move our email program forward? Step 1, appoint an owner. So if you, the person watching this video, is not the person that's going to be in charge of the email, pick someone and make sure it's clear to them that they now own this initiative and all of the items that we just talked about. If you haven't already, map the core business activities that you want potential users or customers to take and write out what messaging they would need to receive and when you would want to tell them that message. We're going to need all of that information to start writing emails and setting up workflows or blasts. It also helps us identify what data needs to be passed between systems so that we can effectively message people. Once you have a skeleton of what messages need to be sent, you need to decide what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. Ideally, you have brand guidelines in place to guide how these messages are going to look and sound, but if not, that's your challenge, and I can do a future video discussing brand guidelines and how it relates to email and all the other channels. If you haven't already, choose your platform and set it up. So again, having the map of your business, the data entities you want to pass between systems, and what you're trying to say will make it significantly easier to choose the platform or refresh the one that you currently have so you can start seeing better results. Then you got to just start testing. Like many things in marketing, there's a bunch of best practices that you can implement into your email program, but in the end, what works for one business might not work for another. So you just need to start sending some messages, monitoring the numbers, and decide where it can go next to improve. And that's about it for today. I hope this introduction to email marketing has given you some context to help you move forward in your journey to using this totally not dead and extremely effective marketing channel. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. Otherwise, stay creative and have a great day.